So one of the smaller ranches um, to the south is the Malero Ranch, and one of many. There's neighboring ranches. Obispo is the name of the most significant one of those, and then a little bit to the south, and sprawling over quite a bit of territory. And I believe I've been looking this up, and I couldn't find anything about this, so maybe I just missed something. But I think that the original Rancho Tijuana included coastline. So just to give you, and it's pretty big. So you saw the map that I put up that showed the former ranches around the and it's so irritating because it only shows the one north of the modern border,
Yeah.
which is irritating. Obviously, it looks exactly the same south of there instead of this featureless
There's
expanse that they imply.
a
So
small shadow in the
yeah, yeah,
south. And then,
Yeah, the
yeah.
only ones that matter are up here.
yeah, and so the so I imagine that the southern half of that actual picture would be just as patchy with all those ranches scattered all over the place, and so
Yeah.
Malero is one of those that's far west. Not it, for those of you who aren't familiar with the region, um, the greenness and the palm trees of the coastline there, and the lush rivers and waterways that characterize what's now San Diego and Tijuana. Um, well, modern water use has changed things dramatically, but back then this was all very wherever there was plentiful water, there was greenery. But if you go just a little way to the east, just not very far, you are going to be in some of the most dramatic sun-baked desert I can think of. Um, Including, I mean, this is going a little farther afield, but if you really went toward, a fair amount east, you would be in the famous Death Valley. So that's and I've been there actually, and it's beautiful, but I don't need to go to the moon now. So anyway, it's pretty rough territory out there, and so just to give you kind of an idea of the landscape, when I say desert, the sort of stereotypical, um, cacti. I mean, those are there. The saguaro cacti that the tall cactus with the arms, stuff like that. Those are there, but that's not really what it looks like. What it looks like is scrubland, and everything just died. Of course, it didn't die. When it rains, suddenly everything's green for a while, but it looks like, oh, look, there were plants and they just died, and they're all over them. So that's kind of the appearance. But anyway, so over where you guys are is much more. Well, it's beautiful, really. I mean, it's gorgeous. Christopher, the weather there is that this is probably one of the few places in California that actually corresponds to the stereotypical California weather that everyone claims is and characterizes
Yeah.
the state. It characterizes maybe 1/13 of the whole state, but this is that spot. So
Yeah.
there is no snow in the winter. There is nice, balmy, endless, sunny days. Um, the winter is rainier and grayer, and it's very distinctive, but it's pretty much just two seasons. Um, so yeah, not a whole lot like Sweden.
So it sounds a bit different. So.
Yeah, and it's well south of anywhere that I've lived. No, that's not true. I lived in Florida for a while, so let me amend that. The day night difference is real. I mean, it's north of the equator. The day night difference is real. all of Mexico is for that matter. But it's extremely limited. It's really not anywhere near. I mean, you might get. I'd have to look it up, but I strongly doubt you would get more than, you know, 14, 10, 14 hours, 10 hours distinction at the solstices. So it's really even from the perspective of where I'm living right now. Okay, so I love geography. Sorry.
It paints a really good picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the ocean. The ocean is spectacular. I mean, everybody I'm sure is familiar with the remarkable coastline of Alta and Baja California along that strip, which is legendary. I mean, there are lots and lots of beautiful beaches in the world, but this is definitely one of them. Um, with cool animals, there's a huge sea otter colony there at present, whales breaching seasonally, and you know, the only thing that isn't quite as romantic is how rank the kelp is that washes up and dies on the beach, which is super, super, super nasty smelling that you kind of don't ever hear about in the tourist brochures. And they clean it off the beaches whenever they have to do a photo shoot. And the odd dead whale is no pleasant object either. Okay. We now have we now have the opportunity for you to tell me a little bit. I mean, of daily life. Give us a little picture of your character doing things, sort of an establishing non-conflicty moment, perhaps, about what your characters are doing and where they're going and what it's like in their local daily lives.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start. So my character is, Jose Maria de Serrano, and he became a lay brother at the mission in San Diego. So I imagine he's been there for a while, like when it was still technically a mission. He arrived, and I haven't thought about too much what the change of it not being a mission anymore means. But I imagine he maybe has a small apartment outside the church, or well, yeah, I don't know, something like that. He does sort of small tasks around the church for the clergy, repairs, that sort of thing. Yeah, just kind of spends his time ambling around there. Has aspirations to study for the priesthood, which at this point in history, I'm not exactly sure, what that all entails. I kind of looked it up a little bit, but yeah, and maybe is spend some time with the father.
Father Ayala.
Say that again. Father Ayala. Spend some time with Father Ayala, studying, presumably studying Latin at this point, and other things like that. And he has a son who stays with a. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
I was going to say this is all true, but if you give us more of let's do a little role playing. What's he doing right now?
Sure.
You can't do everything on a sheet all at once. So what is it that he's doing right now?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So he is, it's an idle morning, and he is sweeping out the church, and waiting to meet with Father Ayala to study, before lunch or something.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. This strikes me as a pretty good opportunity to let you know that I see him as in his early 40s, because if he's been, he was an adult in Baja California, and now he's been up here for a while.
Yeah, he's not here.
Yeah, and the other thing, to know about is that um, the there are people there who have been associated with the mission as long as you've been there, and they are diegueños who have managed to hold on to some property and some businesses here in San Diego. And they're very tightly they were very tightly associated with the mission, and so they're not wealthy, and most of them now have crappy jobs, but they're not completely beaten down, basically. And so the important thing about them is that they have taken the name Ayala, because they've just taken that name as going to be their family name, and for ever since the priest came there as a young man, they took that name on. So the place is full of Ayalas, but they're not related to the father. And so the one of them, whose name is Mateo. Anthropologists will suddenly argue and say, wait, or what about the Ipai names these people should have? And it's kind of like, no, man, they're all using Spanish names. Shut up. So, so the deal with Mateo is he's delivering a bunch of material that you'll need later today for, I don't know, working on the outer wall or something like that, working on the because since the mission lost lots and lots of its funding, a lot of local labor has to go into keeping the place up. That's a lot more voluntary than it used to be. So there's a lot to do. Anyway, so Mateo's brought a wagon load with a couple of mules of things that you'll need. And there's some nice stuff here. There's what looks like practically, almost new, pretty good workman's tools, but it's not like they look kind of specialized, like they're made for people who are camping. I mean, there's a lot of tools and stuff that are good for people camping and not necessarily building houses. It's not gonna be difficult for you to realize that these are military issue. These are Mexican military issue tools and supplies that he's brought in with other things. So, and Mateo kind of gives you a look, he says, he's kind of like, okay, so we got this, this high grade, clay, we've got this plaster, we got, and we have these, and kind of lifts up a blanket, you'll find these useful, right? Covers them over again, right?
Mateo, what am I supposed to do with these?
Well, use them, spread them around, beat them up. That's my advice. Get some good use on them. So they've been used here for, a while.
Your advice, or is this your orders? Is someone telling you to?
No, he says, listen, there's a lot going on. We're here to help out. We're here together. We include you in keeping this place safe.
Does Father Allen know about this?
He's got a lot on his mind.
It's true. Okay. I'll talk to him about this.
Mm-hmm. He kind of gives a look and says, El Señor sabe, God knows. So why bother? You know, it's sort of his implication, but he's not going to argue with you. Right?
Yeah.
Um, so let's cut over to out of the municipality, um, over to the Malero Ranch, which has, like all these land grant ranches, has been built in kind of a two steps away from Spanish style. There's Spanish style from a century ago, and then that's Eastern Mexican seaboard, Mexico City. You know, the kind of established Caribbean Gulf Mexican urban culture, that style for ranching, and then that kind of gets its local version over here across Mexico on the other coast. Um, as a general thing, and as a rancher, this is kind of important. The Mexican government, the Spanish government never, well, I guess this is a terrible word to use, but the Spanish government never pacified the Californios. It provided actually a whole bunch of different acknowledgments and support of different tribal groups. There's actually a pretty cool history about that back here in my notes somewhere. But that's all been gone. So therefore the Mexican government has kind of been landed with this situation of, we better make use of this other coast that we have, that we haven't really bothered with very much. We better make use of this other coast we have. And there seem to be a whole bunch of pissed off people, you know, there. So the one thing that would be of concern to you is the potential presence of Mexican soldiers. The word is that there will be an arrival of soldiers from Mexico. They've traveled across, I guess it would actually be the proto Highway 66 is how they would come over. I mean, obviously not a highway, but where the Highway 66 will be built is the land route by which they will have come over, through Apache territory, which isn't going to make anyone happy, either the soldiers or the Apache. And they because there's no Panama Canal, so sailing a ship, you know, to from if you really think about it, the two seaboards of Mexico, it's kind of a problem. You know, you've got some really rough territory with very, very obstreperous people living in it, and there's no way to get, you know, ships around there without going through tortuous waters of every freaking colonial power in the world. So, you know, it struck me as kind of a tough. They must have sat down after the Mexican, you know, after the Mexican War for Independence. They must have sat down, looked at a map, and said, "Oh, how are we going to do this?" So, did anyone have a plan? So anyway, that's where you're at, and so the rumors of, you know, the Mexican army, they're always flying, but things have been rough, especially after those epidemics. The diegueños have been super unhappy.
Yeah, hasn't been in particular like in a week or in a month or in.
The
Or it's
rumors are
just
always coming,
rumors?
but the rumor now is that there are soldiers en route. Exactly what they would do is unknown. Will they just, you know, are they even going to, you know, yeah, exactly what they're there for and where they'll be is unknown.
Yeah.